Hello and welcome to episode number 91 of the NerdProQuo podcast. Bunch of stuff going on in this episode, mainly Superman, Batman v Superman. We discussed that in this episode. Before we get started in that, just a quick plugs. You got on Tuesday night the Union Square Slam, which is probably going to be called something else at some point soon. That starts at 7. That is a $5 cover, $6 6 o'clock workshop that is free. That is the Bureau of General Services Queer Division in the LGBT Community Center. That is at 208 West 13th Street, room 10. And also Friday nights, you got the Living Room Comedy Show. That is free, 8 p.m. That is 6th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue in Park Slope, Brooklyn. That is it for the plugs for now. There is some stuff coming up, but in the meantime, you get to hear Yves and me profoundly disagree on Batman v Superman. One thing we didn't bring up that I wanted to bring up in this intro that we both actually did dig, and some other people didn't seem to dig, but we did. Jeremy Irons was actually halfway decent as Alfred, and also a very, integral part of Batman being helped out. But we didn't bring that up, and that was actually one of the few things that we had agreed on was actually good in this movie. But in the meantime, it's very obvious what my opinion on it and what our opinion, because I have been expressing it on Twitter about how much I didn't like this movie. But bottom line is, I guess, go see it and make your own decision. In the meantime, here is even me profoundly disagreeing in our review of Batman v Superman. Yep. Okay, we've started. Don't clip the mic like you did last time by yelling under a ruse.
We should start by saying how, I don't know about you, I am an ardent DC fanboy.
Right.
So understand this as we
and also
to talking about
that I am fundamentally a Marvel person, but that doesn't. I don't. Just so we're clear, I am fundamentally a Marvel person, but that doesn't mean that doesn't factor into, I think,
your bias.
Yeah, I don't think it. When it comes to movies, I generally try and just go with whatever is the best. What ends up being the best version of whatever the characters are.
Yeah, because you were being a bitch last night.
I was okay. So we're going to be discussing Batman v Superman,
which was an interesting film. I recommend people watch this movie to form their own opinions, because the people I've been interacting with who've seen it,
right,
granted, are not film buffs. They've enjoyed it.
Okay.
However, coming from the perspective of being a comic book fan,
yeah,
and who isn't easily distracted by, elaborate action sequences or CGI,
yeah,
I could see through what is being thrown at us on the screen.
I saw one good review of it amongst people I know. And even his, the stuff that he liked, I was like, yeah, but those parts. So let me preface this by saying, Eve, you liked the movie. I really didn't like it.
You had a severe reaction to it.
I really did.
Where you were tossing and turning. You wanted to, I think, throw something at the screen a few times.
Yeah.
Okay. It was how should I say this? I wanted to love this film. I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay as a film. It's just a disappointment compared to the other things we've seen from comic book properties in a big screen. That's the thing. If I just see it, as a microcosm of a film, I see what Zack Snyder's trying to do. I applaud him for being a little ambitious,
right?
Without trying to making it a huge fight fest. He tried to set things up.
Yeah.
It was an okay movie. just okay. But the disappointment is the fact that it did not live up to expectations for a lot of people.
It's interesting,
like myself and yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, let me also preface this by saying that we had meant to start this about an hour earlier, but it took like an hour for the train to arrive for me to get here. So
the shuttle or the Q train?
No, the Q train.
Oh.
So I am slightly more full of rage than I would be.
Don't worry, come at me, bro. I'm ready to handle this.
Because I will go into detail about everything that was wrong with this movie. But I will also say that you brought up actually an interesting point that I actually wanted to address is I think part of the reason why got so angry at this movie and why it was so disappointing is we now live in a world where comic book adapted properties, so many of them, because number one, there's just so many of them, period.
Yeah.
That you're seeing it on the big screen and on the small screen. And when you have something like Daredevil Season 2, which we may or may not get into today, we might not.
We should save that for another time.
Okay.
It appears that there's a lot of venom that you'd like to let out for this film.
Yes, definitely.
Save that
but I'll bring up Daredevil Season 2 and Daredevil in general, and a lot of the Marvel movies. Not, as we discussed, not all of them were great either.
Yeah.
But I will say that when you have so many things in the theater, and a lot of them end up being really good, you become less and less tolerant of the things that aren't, and way less tolerant of stuff that really, really isn't, which is what I think this movie. So the one thing that I will say, because I will start with some of the good parts, and they are few and far between. Wonder Woman was actually very cool in this.
Yeah, in her very limited appearances.
And not just the fighting stuff, but the fighting was awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, I appreciate that, like, they actually portrayed her as, like, kind of, like, when she actually starts fighting, like, she's a warrior. Like, she's actually, like...
She leaps into battle, literally.
And she seems to be, like, even when she gets, like, hit and everything, like, when she's fighting... Spoiler alert, it is Doomsday. Yeah. They even had a
poorly imagined Doomsday.
Yeah. But, like, she's enjoying fighting. So the she thrill. Was, like, honestly...
It's like Xena.
So there's two things that I will say that tell you a lot for me about what is wrong with this movie. Is number one, I made the joke when we saw the Batman Lego preview, is that everyone in the theater seemed more excited about the Batman Lego preview than they were about the movie they were about to watch. Like, that just says, and it also says a lot for me, especially for the casting.
First of all, it's Lego. Everyone loves Lego.
We will get to the Affleck thing in a minute. But I think it also says something.
What do you mean the Affleck thing? Just his portrayal of Batman?
We'll get to that. Yeah. I also think it says a lot when the name of the movie is Batman v Superman, and the character who is the best character in the movie is Wonder Woman. Like, is the most appealing and has the best stuff in it. And so you have, like, almost, 2 hours of these other two characters.
I would disagree. Not that she was weak. She was great, but I thought Ben Affleck was a pretty good Batman. I have to say, I like Batman. I like his action sequences. Okay, yes, we have some debate about the amount of killing that takes place.
And blatant, just not...
I find that Zack Snyder borrowed from Tim Burton, where I think Tim Burton is cool with Batman killing as long as he's behind his car. It's okay.
Yeah. That's always this
doesn't count.
This weird thing,
the head counts that Batman racked up, from, offing some criminals with his Batmobile was pretty high. Or they're just probably going to chalk this up to he just severely maimed them.
And also,
through these injuries.
The biggest mistake and problem with this movie, as we discussed, is they tried this stuff way too much into it. You have, spoiler, if you didn't notice, they have these dream sequences, half of which don't need to be in the movie at all.
Which is what Marvel avoided. I mean, this is what Marvel wanted to avoid as they tried to set up this new cinematic universe. Instead of stuffing so much in Avengers, flesh out these characters in their individual films. I'm not a big fan of Zack Snyder, but he did the best with what he could do, considering Warner Brothers wanted to fast track.
They're trying to fast track it, which is a mistake.
He is doing the best with what he has. So this movie is all about exposition, setting up characters.
But he tried to do that. Stuff in the movie, and now that I think about it, I think David Goyer has a lot of blame for this too. Is that there's a bunch of stuff in this movie that you could have stuffed into it, but there's also like all of it, like these dreams that Batman is having. One is clearly on Apocalypse, But my problem with it
just didn't gel well with the film.
The problem with that, honestly, is if you're going to do like Apocalypse, you can have that. Like, it's so much hurts the film and takes you out of it, especially when you have a Batman who's basically just shooting people.
With his car.
No, in that scene, he's basically just shooting people.
Oh, okay.
In that dream sequence. Yeah. And I had a huge problem with that. I was just like, number one, no one's going to know. People are going to go, oh, it's a dream. But no one who doesn't know what's going on is going to be like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, even though I know what's happening in that scene, I'm still like, why the fuck is this in the movie?
And it's not really explained why he starts having these dream sequences.
It's something they're trying to set up for a later film.
How?
But in this movie, it totally takes you out, including a scene which I don't think people realize when he has a dream about the guy coming out of like the portal and be like, "You're right, you have to stop him." That's the Flash. That's the Flash from the future.
Oh, okay.
But the problem with it is even in that scene, and I blame Zack Snyder for this. It's just like none of it is executed in any sort of competent or like coherent way. Also, and we've discussed this, I liked him in Man of Steel. He is clearly Henry Cavill is just collecting a paycheck.
Which he admits during the press tours.
Yeah,
he is very wooden as an actor, and
he's even worse in this. Like I know they're trying to make they're trying to make him like more alien, and also they're kind of portraying. Someone argued that they're portraying. There was a period in like Superman's thing where he kind of embraces the kind of God thing. He's like, I don't really care what mortals think anymore. But the problem with that is that as a Superman on screen, it's just hugely unappealing.
Is there a way for them to recast the role to someone else?
They're not going to, because I think he's under contract for I don't know. We'll see what happens. Based on
they changed War Machine because whatever Terrence Howard was asking too much money. It worked.
Yeah.
With a
actor. In fairness, they picked a far superior person to be in. They could, in fairness to any of these characters, Superman is actually really hard to cast. Because you need someone who, it's one of the things that, like, when you, as cheesy as they were in many elements, and also the fact that 3 and 4 are terrible. Superman 3 and 4 are terrible. Christopher Reeve is actually, even for people who are really upset, it's like, well, he's not big and muscly. It's like, no, but there was something about Christopher Reeve as an actor.
He had charisma. He had a charm.
He was. You saw him on screen, and you believed that people could see this person
as representative of middle American values,
and also like he gave off on screen like a warmth. Yeah. That you could believe that people, like, when he's in that the Superman costume, people like really like him. Whereas
Cavill exudes douchebaggery.
Yeah, Cavill exudes like megalomania. Like, he would have been much better as a villain. Than as Superman. Yeah. Which brings us to Jesse Eisenberg, who a lot of people who've been massively shitting on. He was a weird Luthor.
I was not prepared for that.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for that. I was just...
Yeah. You know who else wasn't prepared for that? Jesse Eisenberg. Apparently, he did not prep... Like, he just developed the character not based on anything from the comics. Even though there was so much to pull from the comics. Yeah. And basically what you got was a Luthor who was like a weird Joker.
Yeah, he looked like he was off his meds a bit, and I expected more of a conniving.
Yes,
Lex
Luthor.
I
get what they were trying to do with him because they went younger Lex. I get that they were trying to say that he's like a little.
Lex Luthor is very in control. Of himself. And of whatever schemes that he's trying to set up. Well, this guy, he was just so, I guess, just emotionally out there. I just did not see him as a good Luthor.
I see what they're... And one of the things for me that made this movie so frustrating is there are definitely things in it where this often frustrates me like a lot when I'm watching films, is when I see what the filmmaker was going for and then watching it fail is really frustrating because you're just like, I think
the thing is, Zack Snyder is just not a capable director. I see what you're trying to say and what he's trying to do with it. He just does not have the tools to execute.
Well, this is a man who made an R-rated version of the film and thinks that that's the better version. It's like, no, you clearly don't. And also made the argument that it was like, he was trying to make a more comic book like thing. It was like, okay, you clearly
DC Comics.
You also
not,
do, like
it's not
you also
to be
fundamentally seem to misunderstand the medium that you claim to be a fan, and yet for some reason you fundamentally misunderstand the medium that you are developing from. Like, I get you know what it is? He's a visual director and can't do anything else except the visuals.
With Man of Steel, was Nolan's crew,
Nolan was more involved with that film.
I wish he was also more involved.
He was a producer on this, but he wasn't like actually.
Oh gosh.
I think I mean the thing is that like the action sequences were cool, and virtually everything else in the film is
terrible. They just waited so long for it. My biggest problem was the fact that it was a slow build-up. I was itching to see someone punch someone. And I enjoyed the action sequences.
Yeah.
I was entertained with the whole... I think, Wonder Woman, when she came in, she kind of like gave me this flair or these flashbacks of Xena, especially with her own theme song where, I can't wait for this. I can't wait for the movie to take place in I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
It just a slow build-up where I just wanted to see more action coming through.
I also think one of the big mistakes, and I said this, is, and then you have it like, for some reason, Superman says his adopted mom's name, Martha, which is also the same. And I was just like, what? Why is that stopping? I mean, I get why that's stopping Batman. I also think
it was okay. You have to admit, it's an interesting way of getting these two characters to bond.
But they sledgehammered it in from the beginning of the movie, where they brought back that scene where they show Batman's origin again for no reason, like the whole like his parents being murdered. Which, by the way,
it was during the credits, so you could give it a pass.
I don't give it a pass. I think you don't need just jump in to the Batman story. Like, don't, like, midway.
Yeah, but they had to set up the link between Batman and Superman. That's their link to resolve any tension. Is Martha,
but
the name Martha, and the fact that they both have mothers, one whose mother's dead, the other whose mother is at risk.
Well, that's the thing. My problem with that is the way they did that, the way Zack Snyder did that was so ham-handed. There was a way to do that could have...
What would you suggest, Mr. Director? It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, but how would you execute that? Because I'm not an NYU film buff. You know, I'm
not either. But there's
I'm just
comic
so
books.
passive.
There's. It's just. There was a way that you could have. There even was a way that you could have done that, had you not had someone like Henry Cavill playing Superman, had you had someone playing Superman who would come across as more sympathetic and warmer. You maybe could have had him actually talking to Batman instead of just saying Martha and them do. It's a thing. It's Zack Snyder going, "Oh, I want to do the spectacle thing."
Yeah.
And plus the whole dream sequence at the beginning with the bats. It's just like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, the dream sequence where somehow a young Bruce Wayne is risen up into the light. Floating through the current of wind generated by the bats carrying him up. That was, it was pretty
and terrible. Lois, again.
I did not hate her. I thought Amy Adams was great.
I like Amy Adams. The problem is they make her a prop to get in trouble and be saved by Superman. Like, she's not her own character. She's not a character. She is...
Well, to be fair, she was her own character in Man of Steel.
Man of Steel, yes. So they went from the character she was in Man of Steel to essentially, and I'm going to say something really terrible here, Natalie Portman in Garden State. She's the superhero equivalent of Natalie Portman in Garden State in Batman v Superman, where it's just like she's a reporter, but her only purpose is to drive a very, very unconvincing, unsympathetic. Am I clipping the mic every time I talk? That's really weird. Anyway, yeah, it just so many things aside from the last maybe 20 minutes and the Doomsday just being a massive disappointment. Just all of it was so boring and so badly done.
Listen, my perspective is it's on par with Captain America: The First Avenger, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was the shit. You know, it's for me. I thought it was on par with that. You know, there was a lot of boring parts to that film, and I think it's the same thing.
Let me preface this by saying, I also think Captain America: The First Avenger was a pretty boring movie, but it got across what it needed to get across. There were enjoyable. Here's the difference. There is, aside from some of the action sequences, at least in Captain America, there seems to be some sort of joy in what's going on in the process, in the filmmaking process. Nothing about this film, aside from the fight sequences, is even remotely enjoyable.
I disagree. I like the confrontation with Batman and Superman. I like the chase scene where Batman was going after the tractor trailer. That was fun.
No, that was cool, but the problem is, the biggest problem with this movie, for me, and I know that you might have a fundamentally different opinion about this, is even in the fight sequences, I don't give a shit throughout the entire film what happens to anyone in this film at any point.
As a regular dude who watches films, I like motherfuckers getting their asses handed to them, and seeing a Batman do that, which is
great.
I love.
That's what the movie
it's what
was.
Arkham.
Which would have been great if that's what the movie was.
This movie is just a setup. That's what I view this as. It's a setup to introducing the new iteration of Batman in this universe.
Right.
I view this as a setup to launching Wonder Woman as a kick-ass character. So I am more tolerant of the weaknesses of this film because I think that once you get this introduction out of the way, the main films will hopefully properly carry this universe. Which the Man of Steel, which this movie couldn't do. I kind of like
what's funny about that is you're right, and then it's really funny.
Minus Superman.
It's what's really funny about that is that, spoiler, you have Superman die. But what's even funnier about that is that, this movie essentially is a movie about how bad a Superman this is. It's a terrible version of Superman.
I was excited about this film because of the final trailer, where they minimized Superman and pretty much blew up Batman and focused on Batman in the trailer.
Right.
It's just I love Superman as a character. I haven't been impressed by the last two actors to portray him, Ralph and Cavill.
I also have a thing. Zack Snyder also in Watchmen, which I give him credit in Watchmen for even trying. My thing with this movie, that what made it so upsetting is it's so much up to the fight sequences is so boring, and they're literally parts of it where I'm groaning at how literally groaning at how bad it is. And for me, when you have an hour and 40 minutes of bad followed by 20 minutes of okay, or decent,
I wouldn't say bad. I would just say slow. It's just real slow.
Yeah, you could have cut at least 40 minutes out of this movie. And that's my thing. That's what makes it makes me so pissed off and so angry about it. Is I understand you're trying to shove, and I really as angry as I am at Zack Snyder and as incompetent as I think he is in executing these things, it's almost also kind of also not his fault, because it's Warner Brothers' fault.
Yeah,
it's Warner Brothers' fault for trying to speed track stuff that doesn't need to be speed tracked.
I think they should have done, instead of doing Batman versus Superman, after Man of Steel, introduce Batman.
Yeah,
have him go through the criminal underworld, trying to find out what's going on with the illegal sale of alien artifacts, whatever.
Yeah.
And then this could lead up to the next film, which would be Batman v Superman. It would have been shorter, more streamlined, and you won't have to worry about, build up.
Right.
Because pretty much this movie was just about Batman investigating, the use, the transporting of the kryptonite and the Russian gang, in Gotham. And that was kind of boring.
There's also this interesting thing where how Batman feels about, again, that frustrating thing of seeing what was being tried.
Because this is our first view of Batman in a world with superheroes.
With Superman.
With powers.
Yeah. What's also interesting is there wasn't again, what makes me angry is what was attempted. So you have during the Zod, they kind of replay the Zod Superman fight from Bruce Wayne's perspective, running in and him losing people. The problem also with that is there's also no weight to any of it. Like, you don't care that any of that is happening. Like, it's supposed to establish that Bruce Wayne / Batman has witnessed all of this, has gotten like, no, this person needs to be put down or he needs to be controlled. And what's fascinating about this, and I would have loved to see this movie go toe to toe on the same weekend or even like a weekend afterward with Civil War, because the themes are the central theme is kind of the same. Is that there are these people with these powers,
and they need to be kept in
check.
They
need to be kept in check, or they need like something needs to, they need to keep themselves in check. When we were discussing the preview last time we were talking, I had a hope about what I hoped the end would be, and it wasn't that. And honestly, when you were asking me, how would have resolved this, I think I said last time, the better way to resolve this is you don't have Wonder Woman looking on Lex's computer and seeing you have the little cameos of the other characters. You wait till the end of that, the end of the movie. Instead of having them at Superman's funeral, you have Bruce Wayne and Diana like talking and how they need to find the rest of them. If you had had a better actor playing Superman, and if you actually were going to deal better with who Superman is supposed to be as a character, and if you had an actual character arc to Superman, what would have been a better way is you have that fight sequence pushed earlier in the film, so you have less setup. You have Batman and Superman fight earlier, in which Lex isn't... You don't have the subplot with Lex. Well, you kind of can like have Lex trying to get them to fight. No. But what you have is Batman not necessarily trying to kill Superman, but just like trying to be like, you need to be controlled. Okay. And then Lex kind of behind the scenes. If he's orchestrating the fight, I'm fine with that. Lex could have been better. You have the Doomsday fight, if it's going to be a Doomsday fight. You have the three of them defeating Doomsday, not without Superman dying, because that was just unnecessary, and plus you don't care. When he dies at the end, there were people who were giggling. And like that's
I have a coworker who said she cried to that.
Yeah, there was a little girl who was crying. But here's the better way that you have that is you have Batman fighting Superman or Superman fighting Doomsday, and they defeat him, like the three of them. You could still have even if you want to have it overstuffed with too many characters, fine. You have them defeat, and then you just have the aftermath being Batman just going,
here's my posse.
No, Batman going, after everything is destroyed again, basically going, or you just have like Batman kind of sidelined by it, and Batman like showing up and going, like basically pointing out to Superman, see all the destruction you caused again? This is why you need to be in check. And Superman realizing for himself that he needs to be kept in check, and that's why they go look for the other metahumans. Not because there's some threat from outward, like, which is obviously Darkseid. Yeah. Is what makes that better as a character for Superman is the whole movie Superman's kind of ignoring the fact that he's kind of this god. Like, he kind of addresses this in this movie with Lois, but because he's not convincing as the character, you don't care. That's also one of the big problems I have with this movie, is so many of the things that I tried to insert to give it some sort of gravity don't work, and you don't care. Yeah. But what would have made that great is at the end of the movie, you actually have an arc for Superman, where Superman starts as the kind of, no, I do what kind of on the same side as Batman, is like, I do what needs to be done. I didn't have a choice. And then he goes through an arc where all the kind of same things happen in this movie. They just happen earlier, and the end result is Superman realizing we need to find the rest of us, because we need to all keep each other in check.
Okay.
Because this, not only do we need to protect the Earth, but we need to, from outside, we need to protect it from us.
Okay. Now, this movie obviously could have been a lot better. We are both in agreement to that. What happens to the DC cinematic universe from this moment forward? Are you hopeful that they can change things around, hopefully with the start of the next Wonder Woman film, with the slight previews in this film of Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg? I wasn't too crazy about the whole Cyborg
thing. Was just hoodwinked in. Yeah, there was. That was actually the worst of the characters. It was just like, oh, this is all he's getting? Yeah. Really? All right.
I was interested about the Aquaman, and I thought the Flash preview was pretty dope.
It was okay, yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because I am more interested in that. I am more interested in seeing these characters portrayed in and I've been told that these won't be origin stories.
What's interesting is, what's really funny is that someone who saw this movie said, like I had said, it was like they were originally kind of pissed off that Grant Gustin wasn't in this, and then they saw the movie and they're like, oh, I'm so glad he wasn't in this. I'm so glad he's not the Flash, because then he would be involved with some. Here's what I'll say about that. I'm interested.
Well, we don't know about what this Flash is going to be like.
I'm interested to see the Wonder Woman movie. A lot of it depends on who's behind it. Batman, I could go. I'd be interested, but here's the problem with this movie is I'm interested but not excited about any of it, just because of the track record that DC has had for its movies.
Well, the reason why I'm excited of Batman is because there's a possibility that Ben Affleck could be in full control of this.
Right.
If that's the case, I'm fully involved, because Ben Affleck, despite his issues as a person, he's a very competent director and writer. So I like to see how he would spin a comic book character, because you've seen what Christopher Nolan could do with Batman, and he's not a comic book director. He's just a good director who could make a really great film about a superhero. I'm hoping that's going to be the case with Ben Affleck. Wonder Woman, I was skeptical about the casting of Gadot. I didn't think she was a great actress. But the few lines that she had made me hopeful. Momoa, I'm a huge fan of his because I love Stargate Atlantis. I don't know how he's gonna be as an actor.
There's a lot of the reason why I'm less excited about Aquaman is
you never liked Aquaman.
Well, here's the thing.
You think he's a joke character?
No, but that's the interesting thing. It's like all of these, all the fundamental problem that Warner Brothers keeps running into with the movie versions of their characters is that they're at their core, and I know we've probably had this discussion before, but at their core, most of the DC characters aren't interesting. There's ways to make them interesting, but when you look at their fundamental concepts, a lot of the actual heroes in their inception are concepts and not characters.
With the exception of Batman.
With the exception of Batman, yes.
And I think Wonder Woman. if you play her as a warrior goddess.
Yeah.
And once again, the reason why I love her right now is because she reminds me of Lucy Lawless as Xena, who thirsts for battle. If they could spin that the right way, I'm all for that.
Well, Batman,
Flash is
I would
cool
argue. Batman, I could argue either way, but
I've always loved every Batman film, minus the Schumacher ones.
Okay.
Almost every single Batman film has done well,
right,
on the big screen, as long as you have a visionary who can execute the character.
Yeah.
And pretty much that's the point with any of these films. Have a visionary who can execute the characters and do them justice. You'll have a good film, no matter who you have. Look at Iron Man.
Yeah.
No one thought Iron Man would be great, but if you have a great director in Favreau, and if you have a great casting in Robert Downey Jr., it will be executed well. Same thing with Ant-Man. It was a weak. I didn't like that movie compared to the other Marvel films, but I liked Paul Rudd. He carried the film, and some of the other actors. So if you can have a really great idea and a somewhat compelling plot and story, the movie should be sound.
There's something also to be said, and comes back.
I just wish DC
comes back to Cavill being the wrong person to play Superman. And we were discussing this last night. Is a lot of the Marvel properties, what you have, and you really do get this impression, with the possible exception of Jeremy Renner. But that's because his character got basically,
I like Jeremy.
I do too.
But portrayal in the Avengers film.
But I also think that there's more that you could have done with that he didn't get to do. Also, and I was thinking about this before, and it's why the Thor movies aren't as good. I don't think is Chris Hemsworth is just not.
Can't carry the character in a solo film.
But what I like about all the other people who are playing characters in the movies, even though Robert Downey Jr. looks like he's starting to, and he's even said is like he's getting older. There's only so much longer he can be this dude.
Yeah.
There seems to be a general feeling that the actors and everyone involved, especially in the Marvel movies that are the best, everyone involved seems to be really juiced and excited that they're doing what they're doing.
Once again, we only have Man of Steel, and this is our first foray. Rushed foray. But these other characters, these other actors had time to build chemistry with each other.
But I also, but here's the thing. I can counter that by saying there are two shows that DC does where you get the feeling, less so with one of them, but where you get the feeling that everyone kind of seems to be enjoying what they're doing too. The DC TV shows, generally, with the exception of kind of Legends of Tomorrow, which is really super uneven, I will say, even though it doesn't carry into the tone of the show, everyone who's involved with Arrow seems to be like what they're doing. There's a definite feeling every time you watch The Flash or you see the interviews with any of those actors that they are really having a good time doing what they're doing.
Once again,
and you know what's interesting that I will say too. I think.
Yeah, we're distracted.
Yeah, we're distracted by something from WonderCon.
Yeah.
Where they're interviewing Zack Snyder
I
about
think
the movie.
Jamie has PTSD right now.
A little bit.
It's like, why am I watching?
I'm going to watch it again because I
really? Are you sure?
Not in
I don't think that's wise.
No, not in the theater. Not in the theater. Not in the theater. I'm going to wait and I'm going to watch it again just to, because it has happened. I'll watch a film again and I'll be like, okay, it's not as bad or as good as I thought it was when I originally saw it. I will also say, as weird as this is going to sound, I get the same feeling about everyone who's involved with Gotham. Is that, and I've heard, and from what I haven't seen all, but it seems like that show is actually hitting a stride now.
First season, but it's picked up. I'm starting to dig Gotham right now. But you're trying to say that it's getting better because the characters or the actors are.
It seems like
they're getting along a little better, or it seems like they're getting along.
I mean, of course, this is the thing with television: is you're given more time to do all this. Even Supergirl, which is not a good show in my opinion, seems
I'm only watching it for Monday.
Yeah, I am too. I am too. But it's just it's frustrating. I mean, the most frustrating of these movies for me on the DC side was Green Lantern. And Green Lantern's
let's not talk about that.
Green Lantern's greatest crime was the entire movie was boring.
No. I don't think the movie was boring. I just thought it was cheesy and just terrible. This Batman v Superman, there were a lot of boring parts, but
of boring parts.
But Green Lantern, that was fucking offensive. Offensive to my senses, and I just never want to relive that.
That's fair.
It's just that was bad. That movie was bad. Spider-Man 3, bad.
Daredevil movie,
bad.
Really,
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
See, here's I will.
No. What my problem with that was that it was uneven.
Yeah,
the
that's
parts
what I was going to say.
Where Garfield and Stone were together,
yeah,
great. Everything else, I didn't give a shit about.
Also, the first, if you skip the part with his parents, as I've said many times, the first 10 minutes of that movie are great. It's so. Again, I think what made me so angry about Batman v Superman is really the idea that here's what could have been, even given all the shit that they're trying to stuff in, and here is what we got, and what we got is
a Zack Snyder product, and the lesson learned is that Zack Snyder should not be trusted with these properties.
Well, here is the central problem with the DC movies in general. And it is the same problem with the Sony-produced Marvel movies.
You got to backtrack. Not every DC movie, because it appears that Batman tends to do pretty well. If you take away studio involvement, because Schumacher, don't like the guy.
Yeah.
But for learning, as I've gotten older and read about what's happened, DC was involved with Warner Brothers was involved with that movie, which is why it was so terrible. So if you have a director who can do a character justice once again, I think these characters will do well. Unfortunately, with Batman v Superman, Warner Brothers.
Well, here's what I'll say, and same problem, honestly, with what I think is you're going to run into this problem with X-Men Apocalypse 2 is the central problem with the Warner Brothers. We'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens.
I don't know about that. I have some hope about X-Men Apocalypse.
Here's what I will say. Generally, has been the problem with the Warner Brothers DC movies, with the exception of the Nolan Batmans, and the Marvel movies, generally speaking, that aren't produced by Marvel, meaning the Sony Pictures Spider-Mans, and it's recently, and the Fox X-Men properties, is they feel like products more than they feel like movies. Okay. And that is biggest problem and what I think kills this movie and made it so terrible, in my opinion, is that we were given a product with these characters in it and not a movie. We were given a 2.5-hour commercial for films that haven't come out yet.
Well, I mean, kind of. That was
and
first
by the way,
Captain America.
By the way, I am not saying that the Marvel movies aren't that as well.
Because for me, the only great Marvel movies that I saw, Iron Man 1,
okay,
Avengers 1 and 2 because of wait, what's his name again?
James Spader?
No, the director. Buffy guy. The director.
Joss Whedon.
And Guardians.
And Age of Ultron.
Guardians.
Age of Ultron wasn't as good because of studio interference as well.
Yeah, but it's still better than any other properties that we've seen that are comic book related. Better than this one. Better than Batman v Superman.
I mean, I would argue again that as boring or as whatever as you think Captain America was, I understand that boring and you don't judge it on whether it's a quality movie or not. Captain America, the First Avenger, as boring as it might have been, was still actually an okay movie. And this was not.
I think, well, that's where I'm coming from. I think it's okay. That's my perspective. It's an okay film.
Right. Oh, Batman v Superman?
It's okay. Not terrible. Just okay. Long, but the same way that the first Michael Bay Transformers film was okay.
Yeah.
But what carries it is our first introduction of giant robots. This is our first introduction of Batman in a universe with other heroes and our first meetup with Batman and Superman. It's okay. My hope is these films won't be stagnant like the Transformers films.
But I will also say, and it's just because generally speaking, the DC movies, for me, haven't been. I do think the one that's going to be that I'm actually a little bit more excited about, if for no other reason than it might actually be interesting, just before we close out here, is Suicide Squad.
Yes, because it's not. Once again, it's not dark, and it looks like
the stakes are lower too. The stakes are significantly lower because it's. And DC is totally it's totally deliberate. It's totally deliberate too. Suicide Squad is DC's Guardians, and we can only hope.
And I'm more
that
excited
it'll be
about that movie than Batman.
With the exception that Will Smith is probably massively miscast, but
miscast, yes. But I think he's not going to drag the movie down. I think he could hold it because it seems like he had a good time on set.
Yeah,
and it seems like everyone else had a good time. I think there's been I read somewhere that they all have matching tattoos to commemorate their time working with each other. I think it's just going to be a fun, lighthearted.
I hate to be a broken record, but that reinforces my opinion. Is that might actually be a good movie because it seems like everyone involved actually is enjoying what they're fucking doing. Whereas this movie, it seems like no one involved.
Yeah. Which I hope that in the next 5 years, we will see a more mature DC cinematic universe, and hopefully you'll have a Wonder Woman actor who is established.
Right.
Ben Affleck, hopefully he loves and grows into the role.
Right.
And then hopefully, please God, get rid of Henry Cavill and replace him with someone else more worthy of the role, who cares about the role. Because from what I've heard, he doesn't give two shits about it. And I wouldn't want that. I mean, I want a director who loves the source material, and I want actors who want to do these characters right. And Cavill, I think, is hurting it. I mean, his portrayal is wooden, and I just don't like him.
Okay. So we disagree on this movie.
I say it's a strong okay.
It's a strong okay. And
I recommend that you see it just to have your own opinion. Because other people they were excited about this. I didn't understand why they were excited about it, but they liked it. And I would recommend that you watch it and don't pay attention to the reviews. And don't listen to Jaime because he is overstating how terrible this movie was.
Here is, weirdly, or not weirdly, because of what I've become, as horrible as I am making this movie out to be, I actually agree with Yves on this one point. I say, well, here's the problem. I am of two minds about this. Number one, I want to say, go see this and form your own opinion of it.
Okay.
On the other hand, I also want to say, as strongly negatively as I felt about this film, I want to say, don't go see this movie, because maybe it'll wake Warner Brothers up to be like, oh, we need to do better. Or it maybe the almost universal horrible reviews will wake Warner Brothers up to be like... I
would hope that the reviews do that.
Yeah.
That's necessary.
Also, just as a brief putting a tack on things that I have discussed before, and then we will go into this night, and hopefully I will get home. The Q train will actually run. The reaction to the Ghostbusters preview from an actual audience that isn't a bunch of dudes on the internet.
They were very
They seem happy about it. So, fuck the haters on that movie, yeah. Honestly. Like, as goofy or as weird as some of the stuff in there is, it's just like, hey, look, an actual audience that isn't a bunch of dudes who think that their childhood is being raped.
Once again,
saw the preview.
You're talking about dudes who are a small minority of the internet, and they're just, unfortunately, the loudest ones. Yeah. You're just going to have to ignore them. And I think that the trailer was very strong. The cast is really great. Yeah. And I can't wait for this film. Yeah. And another thing, internet listeners out there, watch Keanu. Please watch
Everyone
Keanu.
Go see Keanu. The preview for Keanu. That's the Key and Peele movie. Yeah.
You just have to.
Yeah.
Support these two guys, please.
Yeah. So I think that's it on Batman v Superman. We'll have to do a Daredevil thing at a later time.
Yes. I mean, both of us are in agreement. It was awesome.
What, Daredevil season 2?
Yes.
Yeah, I have issues with it, obviously, that we have discussed, but it still was
awesome.
Those
issues are, we'll talk about that.
Before I cap this, I'm sorry, I have to belabor the point on, for me, what makes a terrible thing is, and this is why I'm
Daredevil?
Briefly bringing up Daredevil, is the stuff that I had a problem with or that wasn't done well in Daredevil. And I understand it's the difference between a movie and a series. You have more leeway in a series. Is that the bad stuff doesn't outweigh the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And my biggest problem with Batman v Superman is, for me, personally, the bad stuff in this movie so outweighed the good stuff that I have to, at the end, go, yeah, this was terrible.
Dude, listen. They were forced to cram so much in. I feel that standalone films would be
hopeful.
Better. I'm just hopeful. That's my point of view.
I am intrigued to see what this does for the...
I'm intrigued by The Flash. I'm intrigued by Aquaman. Right. And I am excited about Wonder Woman.
Actually excited about Wonder Woman, yeah. I didn't think I was going to say that, but that's the one... I will say that's the one positive thing that got pulled out of this movie for me.
And Chris Pine's in it because he's awesome. Yeah. So I'm hopeful. When is that coming out again? This year?
I have no idea. When I do the video version of this on Monday, I'll look it up and I'll post it. It'll be fine.
All right.
I think we're okay. I think we're gonna be.
It's
okay.
a strong okay, America.
Yeah, I think
it's a strong okay. It's safe to watch Batman v Superman.
It's a strong terrible America.
Fuck you.
But I think we're all going to be okay. I think we're all going to be okay.
The next movies will be better.
Yeah. All right.
Sign off.